Hello everybody, welcome back to Leading Our Own Way. I'm Andrew White, I'm your host, and today we are diving deep into a conversation that could truly change lives. I'm joined by the amazing Bridget Hancock, nutritionist, wellness advocate, and the author of a book called Live Like a Lobster. Bridget's journey into cancer awareness began with personal loss, and it sparked a mission to empower others to extend their lives, avoid disease, and confront cancer head on. In this episode of part 1, you'll hear Bridget break down the science of longevity, why telomeres matter, that's fascinating, and how our daily choices shape our health, and the practical steps we can all take to build resilience against disease. We'll explore the truth behind rising cancer rates, the power of nutrition, and the role of mindset in healing. Bridget brings not just knowledge, but hope, sharing real stories of transformation and the holistic strategies she champions through her retreats and her book. Get ready for an honest, deeply insightful look at the intersection of genetics, lifestyle, and what it really takes to live well. If you're searching for inspiration and practical tools to take charge of your health, I really believe this is the episode for you. If you or someone close to you is facing cancer or chronic illness, please reach out to a qualified professional for support. These episodes are here to inform and inspire, but always prioritize your health and safety. Here's Bridget and myself right after the trailer. Welcome to Leading Our Own Way. I'm your host, Andrew White, and this is the podcast that unveils captivating narratives of resilience and personal triumph. This podcast is for anyone seeking inspiration and insights on overcoming life's challenges. Follow and subscribe, and then we can lead together forever. Before we dive in, I want to give a big, massive shout out to our now new proud sponsor, Eshu Skincare, a brand that truly aligns with leading our own way. This Australian-born company is dedicated to keeping skincare simple, effective, and straightforward. They've made waves in the US, even landed in Macy's and over 300 stores, and now they're back with a renewed focus on healthy skin and real results. If you want authentic skincare that fits your lifestyle, check them out in the show notes. Thanks to Eshu Skincare for supporting real stories and mental fitness on Leading Our Own Way. And if you're interested in sponsoring like Eshu Skincare, drop us a message. We'd love to connect. Bridget, throughout your journey, you've seen cancer touch the lives of people around you, and these topics kept resurfacing during your studies. Was there a particular moment of realization when you knew you had to dive deeper into understanding cancer and the things that come along with it, like, inflammation and healing? How did that shape your mission and the message behind Live Like a Lobster?
I think the time for me where I really realized that I had to do something about this was when a neighbor of ours told us that at the age of 40 that he had esophageal cancer, and we would share a school run with his 3 little boys and my son, and his sons had looked it up on the internet and realized that they didn't have their father for very long. And basically, I think they saw that it was sort of 8 months was the prognosis. And I realized then, I saw him going to have chemo, and what had happened with him was he'd had a life of living fun, but lots of curries, lots of beers, lots of late nights. And this had stemmed from having reflux. And that really made me realize that, this shouldn't be happening. And we did lose him within the year. And he was undergoing treatment, and he was very uncomfortable, and his quality of life was really poor. And I realized then, even with the information that I already had, that a lot of people didn't realize that there is another option. It could be done differently. You could actually have fewer side effects. You could maybe even reverse it, but who knows? But whatever it is, there were things that could be done that weren't being offered. And for me, I just felt that doing more study and being able to share that with people may help others live a better quality of life while they're going through the process.
Yeah, wow. Amazing. Incredible. Well, Bridget Hancock, welcome to Leading Our Own Way. Thanks for joining me. Such an honor to have you here on the show. I'll start off by how I came across you. You're an Aussie, living in the UK, and I was going through the beautiful town of Bowen Heads, right near my home, 20 minutes away. And I was going through a bookstore, and I came across a book called Live Like a Lobster. And it caught my attention. I think it was the word lobster. And then I looked down, and it says how to extend life, avoid disease, and confront cancer. And I thought, that's right down my alley. And I started speaking to the book owner, and then I was lying in bed reading it that night. It was a Sunday evening, and I thought, screw it. I'm going to message her. I'm going to find her somehow. And I found you. And within a day or so, you responded, and you said you'd love to come on the podcast. So we're here. Thank you for joining me. It's such an honor.
So it took us a while, didn't it? Sorry, my fault, but we got there.
No, we've become friends. I feel like we've become friends because of that.
Right? Definitely. I agree.
We had a beautiful pre-chat. We're gonna. Yeah. I mean, that little that response to my first question is a clear insight of where we're gonna go today, and really, Matt, the journey you've been on in recent years and longer as well of diving deep into what you do. I always ask the guest how they lead their own way. So, Bridget, that's over to you. Really, how do you consider that you are leading your own?
Well, firstly, I'm trying to navigate and learn all the different things that we can do from a longevity point of view to be healthy, to stay healthy, to age with good health. And at the same time, I want to share as much of that information with others. So that's really my mission, is to do that. And so I hope that I'm sharing that information with others so that they can see from the way I'm living that there can be a different way. And I do these like little one-day retreats in the UK, like called Feel Fab Fridays for women predominantly. And they want to come and be part of this and see, okay, what is it that you're doing? What is it that we need to do in order to have a healthy life? So they come for the day, and we share all these tools and organic food and longevity things, infrared sauna and lymphatic drainage and all that sort of stuff. And they come away feeling really nurtured and loved. And I think that the other part of it is actually that giving yourself that self-love and self-care. So that's the part that I'm trying to do for myself and being able to share with others. So I think that's the way I'm leading my own way, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm. And another way you've done that is by writing Live Like a Lobster. Let's go there for a minute. The title, before we get into the nooks and crannies of your personal journey, because I do want to touch on your personally, because that's what the podcast is all about, is sharing your personal journey of why you do what you do every day. But the title, it's for those who don't know, and I didn't know, and we spoke and you cleared it up for me, but Live Like a Lobster. Why Live Like a Lobster as your title?
Right. Well, lobsters are really, really clever, actually, because I have to go into a part which is about telomeres on DNA. So just a little bit about that, which is on the end of all our DNA strands, to protect them, we have these little caps on the end called telomeres. And they shorten every time our cells replicate. And so in order for them to lengthen, if we had an enzyme called telomerase, it would make more of these telomeres. Now, lobsters can do this. They make telomerase. So they can just lengthen their telomeres all the time, protects their DNA, and allows them to live longer. Because when the telomere runs out, in our case, we die. The DNA is no longer protected, and it's all over. Now, we have things that we can do in order to lengthen our telomeres, but we don't have that telomerase on tap like the lobsters do. So lobsters effectively can live for 200 years. The only thing that really goes wrong with lobsters is either we're farming them and eating them, which is not helpful, or they have to molt their shell. They shed the shell and molt, and then they have to grow a new shell. And in that time, of course, they can end up being eaten by predators. But they don't really biologically age. They're quite healthy. So that's why it's like, what can we do to live like they do in order to have long telomeres? And there are things that we can do. And that's what the book's about. Yeah.
So that's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So what are some of the things then that we can do to complete that process?
So this is what the book's about. So it's things like exercise, good sleep, a really good diet, all those basic things, reducing stress, good quality of life. And they're really simple things, but we are all a product of the environment, aren't we? And we have, nutritional imbalance, we have a lot of stress, we have toxicity, and we have low nutritional status as well on the whole. So all those things added in, we have poor quality sleep. We have a lot of, the pollution and toxins from living in our environment. So all those things, so we kind of can move away from that. And also we don't reduce the stress with things like meditation. And not that lobsters need to meditate because they have telomeres, but we obviously don't. And so we have to actively do these things. So something like meditation and lowering stress, we just assume stress will lower on its own. We think, oh, I've left the stressful meeting or the stressful phone call or, the financial situation, I've managed to pay that bill or the mortgage or the interest rates, whatever. Oh, we got through that. We're okay. But the stress is still there. The stress hormone is still running in the body. And they did this great experiment with mice, and they put 5 mice in a box with enough water, space, and food, and measured their cortisol, and they were happy mice. They put another 5 in, and of course they measured the cortisol again, and now the cortisol's obviously risen, which makes sense. But when they took the 5 away and just let them calm down again, they went back and they measured the cortisol, it was still high. So it doesn't actively reduce on its own. So we have to actively reduce and switch off that cortisol. So that's why things like getting in nature, meditation, breathing, just breathing in through and out through the nose and slowly on the exhale can really reduce the cortisol. So yeah, things like that we can do will help us lengthen the telomeres and keep, longevity for us. Yeah.
So do you think societies, I always say we're living in, I always say that people are living in fear without necessarily realizing it. But I think that's probably a contribution of the stress. Do you think we're the most stressed society that we've ever been through right now in the present day?
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm not sure what's happening in Australia, but I don't think it's dissimilar to here. I know here we've had food increases by 40% in the last few years. And people just don't have that money. It's not as if their income's gone up like that. And interest rates have gone up and everything else. And I think people are living in fear. Yeah, they really are. And what's so amazing is the things that we can do to help ourselves are predominantly free. Walking outside in amongst nature can be free. Breathing in and out through the nose is free. Doing things like that, meditation with a free, on an app that's free. I love one called Soul Sync meditation. It's totally free, and it's 15 minutes of guided meditation for people who've never done it before. It's beautiful, and it can really bring you out of that state of fear. And I think when we're out of that state of fear, we've got clarity, and then we can start to look at ways, we become, firstly, the creativity can come back online, and then we can think of how we can move out of the situation we're in. But when we're in that state of fight and flight, not only does our immunity drop, but also the ability for the side of our brain for creativity to think logically or think in a way that can give us an option other than the one that's presented that's causing the fear, that's just switched off. So we need to switch it on. So yeah, I think you're right. Fear is a big one.
I mean, you go to the stats, right? I mean, even on your book, because it's scary with cancer. Cancer's now what you've quoted 1 in 2 in the UK. I think that's probably worldwide, isn't it?
I think it is worldwide now. I mean, there were some numbers saying 1 in 3, but it's getting to 1 in 2 will have cancer once in their lifetime. Yeah.
And science has progressed. We've put so much money into it, yet we haven't reduced the chances of getting cancer. Everything you've just mentioned there, yes, it's free. We've had that at our disposal for 5 million years since the human physiology has been around, or give or take whatever it is. Everyone looks at that as, I suppose, I don't know, woo-woo, hippie, however you want to look at it. Why are we not looking at this? Why are we not doing this more and more and more? I mean, I've changed my life in the last 3 years since I started studying the brain and the body and things like that. I left my job because I was the most stressed. I nearly died from chronic stress with sepsis in the body, and I believe my body was holding the score, keeping the score,
Yeah,
right?
keeping
It
the
was
score,
it,
absolutely.
it was ski it was talking to me, and since I've stopped and got rid of a lot of stress in my life, I've eaten well, I've become clearer. Hey, with the podcast I've become creative. Andy White was never creative.
Yeah.
It's bizarre how I've been able to evolve even just the platform on its own. I've been able to put my focus and clarity. I've done millions of things other than just food and exercise. I've jumped in cold water and things like that. Why are we not looking at all this more then? Why are more people? Is it just because we're busy? What do you think it is? I mean, you deal with people every day. What do you think it is? Where are we going wrong?
Well, I think that the pain of staying the same has to be greater than the pain of change. And so we are naturally lazy. I mean, even ourselves are naturally like to just stay in comfort and not really have to do very much. We just go along with what's going on, and the next thing you know, we've gone on and on and on for years. And it's not until something happens that we say, whoa, oh, okay, hold on. This is not working. But until that point, all the whispers we ignore, like the number of people that say to me, yeah, I've had tummy pain for years, or I've had this or that. And then the next thing you know, it's not until there's something big that they do it. And even to the point where, an example really close to me was someone, well, actually, my ex-husband, who got bladder cancer. And they said to him, and he was a polo player, so he was like a big smoker and living a great life, and was all part of the horse thing, I think. But they said to him, you've got bladder cancer, do you smoke? And he said, yes. And they said, well, that's the reason. And he walked out of that appointment and didn't pick up a cigarette again. Yet, we had talked for years, you've got to stop smoking, please stop smoking, it's bad for you, da 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 da. But you've got to have that reason. And when that reason comes, the pain of staying the same is too great and you have to change. And so until then, we don't really change. Some people don't even change then, might add. But, I've had clients on calls with cancer who, can I smoke on the call? And yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'd rather you didn't, or, yeah, it's tricky. Some people just have a different way of looking at things. But on the whole, when it's time to change, people will make the change. And until then, I don't think they do.
Yeah. And then even then, when they get back to being, sorry.
Well, I think that's the sadness, because I think for many of us, I mean, I'm a bit older than you.
Not much.
We go along, and what I consider is it's like we're withdrawing from the bank with our body. We just keep withdrawing. Oh yeah, another late night, another drink, another eating rubbish, another whatever we're doing, until we get to a point where things go wrong. And then actually I put it to people that, hey, let's try and deposit back in. And all the things you mentioned, they're the deposits back in, aren't they? They're all the things that are good for the body that we need to do. So yeah. And it's hard. How many people want to sit down and listen to a meditation for 15 minutes? It takes real commitment. It should be really easy, shouldn't it? But actually, most people don't want to do it.
It's crazy if you think about it, because 14 minutes of the day is 1%. So when we can turn around and say, are you willing to put 1% of the day into your well-being? They're like, yeah, of course. Oh, that's 14 minutes. Do you do 14 minutes? No, I don't. Well, come on, do 1% of the day, and it'll say, that 1% will turn into 2% before you know it, within a 2 weeks or a month, right? And that's the trajectory of your life changed instantly.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Exactly.
And you're so right. I mean, for me, I went through toxic environments, workplace bullying, to a point where I was suicidal. That wasn't enough to change my life. What did change my life was the sepsis shock, where I was half an hour away from being in a coma, induced coma in ICU in Geelong, where I live. That was the moment. So I'd been through fear, I'd been through anger and anxiety. That still wasn't enough. I needed the body to speak to me. And I would have to say 80% of my guests I filmed, I think you're my 98th guest, or 19, I don't know what you're at. 80%, 90% of my guests, they've been through something in order to change the trajectory of their life. and it's so sad, and it comes down to choices. And I think that's why the podcast exists. It's to make people realize on the outside, who are not my guests, we have choices. Let's get the foresight rather than the hindsight, because I don't want you to go through that pain. But the question still lies, do we have to go through it to make the change? Maybe we do. I don't know.
It's interesting. I had one client in particular who had several of his, a male 50-year-old client who about 3 or 4 of his friends then contacted me, all around the same age, saying, we want to have a consultation with you. And none of them were particularly ill, but they had whispers. They had things and they wanted to talk about it. Most of them digestive, most of them gut problems and discomfort that way. And they said, we don't want to go down that path. We want to avoid it. And that is unusual. So
yes.
Yeah, I agree with you. But in that case, it's the only time it's happened where someone who was close to somebody who's got a really stage 4 metastatic cancer, has actually said, hey, actually, you know what, I'm waking at night with stomach pain, or I've got this or that, and I want to do something about it. But on the whole, you're right. Everyone says, oh my goodness, it's so sad, it's happened to them, and yet they're going to bed with the tummy pain, or they've got the whispers, or whatever it could be, and yet they're not doing anything about it.
Yeah, so true. The history of cancer then. Obviously, we're living in a space where at least someone connected in our life is going to go through cancer. My mum, it's already nailed in my box because my mum had cancer, breast cancer. Yeah. And I can't think of any other one else in my family, but I know friends who have had cancer. I know I've had friends die of cancer. I've had other friends of friends and family. You can see where I'm going with it.
Yes.
I've in one of my books behind me, I can't remember who it was, but I don't believe there was any recorded cancers, thousands of years ago. I think they found cancer in bone marrow of dinosaurs, but I don't think there was any other recorded cancer. I mean, you might be able to correct me on that, but was cancer around back in the day and we just didn't notice? Well, I mean,
I don't think I can answer that question accurately, but I can say that obviously we didn't live as long, for a start, but we didn't have the toxins that we have. We didn't have the chemicals in the food. We ate really simply. We didn't have the stresses of traffic and the modern day stresses, which actually they say are things like financial, traffic, and caffeine. There were a lot of those things that we didn't have. We didn't have seed oils in the food and processed foods and all those things. So the chances are not. I mean, we even know now that in Japan, breast cancer is really low, hardly exists.
Yeah.
And that's
they keep the glucose.
They don't have dairy. Sorry.
Well, they keep the Japanese culture, the food, the way they eat the food, they eat the vegetables first and then the proteins and starches, and apparently that's what helps reduce glucose spikes. So the less glucose spikes you have in your life, you age better. You don't. I mean, even look at 70-year-old Japanese; they look 50, for example.
They do, exactly, and they don't. And they don't eat dairy like we do, which we now know is a driver of breast cancer. So all those things that I mentioned before, even though people might think, well, it's not because of the toxins in the air or in the food or in the fabrics, in the mattresses, in the sofas, in the chemical washers, in the body washers, in the shampoos, in the, all those things. And it's not to do with the stress of having a coffee a day or being caught in a traffic jam or work stress or interest rates or whatever. Or it's not the fact that, we can't actually eliminate this stuff from our body. Those little things can't be the reason why cancer is 1 and 2, but they can. So, yeah, I would say it probably wasn't around. And that's why I said I couldn't say it with all the accuracy, and there would have been some. But the fact is we can change this when we change all those things. So as they didn't exist many, many years ago, chances are we probably didn't get it.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
We probably died because, of like hypothermia or starvation or, a plague, because we didn't have, vaccines that are relevant, things like that.
Yeah, it would have been other reasons why we died. Probably, It probably wasn't so much the cancer. Yeah, absolutely, I completely agree. I'm not a big history expert, but I do love looking at our ancestors and the way we lived. I find that fascinating. So with you then, outside of writing the book, because I know we'll dig in and out throughout this episode of the medical side and the things we can do to confront cancer, avoid cancer, prevent it, whatever words we want to use. But for you personally, what do you do outside of writing the book of Live Like a Lobster? What do you do on a daily basis, and how do you lead your own way in other ways?
Oh, as in, how do I look after my health, or
Well, no,
what else do I do in my life for helping others and doing what I do? Yeah,
to help others. I mean, we will go into morning routines and what you do personally, absolutely, because we touch on that with every guest.
Sure.
But yeah, what do you
Yeah.
do professionally outside of the
Okay,
writing
so
component?
professionally, I run the one-day retreats, which are amazing, and so rewarding. I feel so blessed to get to do that because people go away feeling really amazing. And I had a woman the other day who I'd try and invite someone as a community person along, and she'd lost her son a year ago at 19 in an accident. And she's really struggled to get over that. So she's found, unhealthy ways of dealing with it. And literally she came for the day and then she and her partner decided, that's it, we're going to stop drinking. And so they have stopped. And she messaged me and she said, haven't had a drink for 50 days. And, and then sent me this beautiful card. And it's not that, it's just that it was the catalyst for change for her. So that is a massive thing. I've got, well, it's part of also, what's happening in the future, but doing some menus for people and teaching them. And whether it's, I've got a client who's got a very autistic son, so I'm teaching staff there what to do and how to manage him and his health, and how we can make him good food and get everything running. So I do a lot of those things as well. And then it looks like I'm going into some restaurants and cafes in London and outside of London to set up some food there and menus and things like that, because we need more of it. And even though we've got a lot of places that and maybe actually, I think Australia, it's much better, to be honest, than the UK. You have a lot of really genuinely healthy places. I always love it when I come out there because I can always find good food. But here we have it, but it's still got a lot of sugar. There's always maple syrup, there's a lot of that. And so I think there is a need now. And the people that I'm talking to they're leading the way in health. And so they want me to be part of that to help, let's make real food that's really healthy. There's a group in Dubai as well that I'm just started working with, and we're setting up, a lot of people have got wellness areas in their hotels or members clubs. But again, it's about it really being authentic. It's about it following through to the menu and the training of the staff and understanding, there's a cold plunge there, but what are you meant to do with it? I mean, I don't know about you, but I go to places and people don't even tell you what to do. They have no idea. And there have been times where I'm actually saying to the other guests, hey, just do what I'm doing. This is what will work for you. They have no clue. So it's like, we've got this thing, we can charge for it, but we're not actually following through so that you can really benefit from it. So I'm doing those things as well. So it's super exciting. And then I've got my beautiful one-to-one clients, like consultations. People come in, through, it's usually word of mouth or through the book or whatever, that, they need support. So, and unfortunately, the sad part is I'm seeing a lot of people now who are getting younger, who have got cancer. So yeah, it's really difficult. So yeah, that's all the ways I'm trying to help as much as possible, and getting the book out. Really, that's my first thing. I'll just say to people, just get them a copy of the book, because it's easy for them to read. They can have a look and they can see that it really is possible, that there isn't just one path. And so yeah, that's really important for me as well. So
Yeah, I think that's I can vouch. It's a beautiful, easy read with a lot of information and a lot of menus in there as well. So if anyone's struggling to even think about what to find, it's quite easily to follow what type of things they should be putting in their body. I say should. I know you have to avoid certain words, but no, should be put in your body.
You know what? I think you're right. I think should's important. I mean, should especially applies to cruciferous vegetables. Broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, rocket, watercress, radishes, all those things.
Different colours.
We should be eating them in our diet because they are essential for the liver function. So yeah, definitely. If we're incorporating those in the diet all the time, we're helping with the detoxification of the liver. What we don't want is everything sitting and being recirculated around the body, which is just where it becomes more and more toxic. So yeah, definitely, it's a definite should, whether you have a cancer diagnosis or not. It's getting back to that. And it's funny, just touching on what you said before about the history. I always think that we've got to go back to the hunter-gatherer lifestyle. That's it. We did not have monocrops, and we did not have all those, like starchy foods that we're now
Braise.
consuming, the bread and the pasta and things like that. It's just, I say to people, when you make dough with children, what do you do? It's flour and water, and it goes rock hard, and we're eating that stuff, and it's sitting in our bodies, and then we're wondering why things are sitting on top, and it's becoming more and more toxic, and we're not excreting, waste, which we should be doing most likely after every meal, but some people are not doing it even once a day. So, yeah, there is a lot of should in the food. Exactly. And then all the beautiful nutrients in fruits and vegetables, and the colors, and the purple foods and the orange foods and things like that. So yeah, I agree with you. There is really a should when it comes to.
I completely agree. I don't mean it to be insensitive to people, but I think we've got to be saying, rather than worrying about how people feel, go, oh, I know it's hard and you can't do it and it's more expensive and what. No, but we actually should be doing it if you want to avoid these things.
Absolutely.
Simple.
It's like servicing a car. You have to service a car, otherwise, or change the oil. Otherwise, it's just not going to run properly.
Yeah. Because if your car runs down today and your 4 tires break down, you're going to the mechanic to get 4 new tires today,
Right.
whether know how expensive it is. You are doing it. Right?
Exactly. And if they say you have to change the oil, you have to do it. So that's what we're doing with the liver. Clean it up. Yeah, you've got
But
to
we
do
don't
it.
think like that until something goes wrong.
But something goes wrong. Exactly.
Again, going back to 5 million years, 4 million years, however our physiology's been around, we've been eating plants for God knows long, even over meat. I think we started eating meat 450,000 years ago, give or take. Then we started to cook it around 250,000 years ago, which has obviously built the calories and contributed to the change in the shape of the brain and the prefrontal cortex and things like that, which proves again we lived solely off emotions before we became logic. And, you know what I mean? And again, that's even how our hand changed, wasn't it? The opposable thumb pulling the plant from the ground because we came from the trees and realized we could actually eat from the ground too.
Yes.
Which obviously brought other stresses, the tiger and so on.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. But it's interesting with the tiger, you look at that was our main fear, that was our real worry. And then you look now at how animals deal with that. And so if you look at any of the Attenborough programs, and there are the antelope that have got away from the deer, and they from the tiger, and then they look up, or lion, I should say, and then they'll look up, and then they kind of start eating, and they shake, the body shakes, and they literally from a cellular level shake off the fear. Or they see the baby lion cubs will reenact what's just happened, a chase, and it's their way of dealing with it. So, we've grown up in a society, this is slightly off what we're talking about, but off topic, but we've grown up in a society where if we hurt ourselves or we have a fear as a child or whatever, or as an adult, it's like, especially with children, we're like, it's okay, it's enough, you're all right, stop crying, don't worry. But actually, what we need to do is go, wow, what happened? And oh my goodness, really? And do the reenactment of the cubs and let the body just expel all that fear and tension and trauma, so that we're like, that's okay. I'm okay. I can move on. Yeah, interesting.
Oh, no, I say the exact same thing. To the kids at schools, I say, you can go on YouTube and watch a deer being attacked by a lion. And because I see a lot of anxiety in society, and I didn't know what anxiety really was until I was 32 when I went through my trauma, because I couldn't actually run away from the tiger, the bully in the workplace. So my body was speaking to me. I was throwing up in the front garden every morning, and it was horrible. But I didn't know that. I just thought I was ill at the time, right? Because I didn't know this stuff. And I always say to kids, anxiety is a byproduct of fear. It's not one of our original survival emotions, but fear is. But because now you can't run away in the same way. But if you look at the deer being attacked by the lion on the YouTube, once the attack is over, there's 2 outcomes. It's either survived or it's died. But if it survives, the mother is immediately, like you just said, shaking it off, getting rid of the fear. But it's back to its duties of looking after its children. If it's in fear still, it can't be the mother to its young. So therefore, survival doesn't exist. They will die. So the mother's doing its job again in order to survive. And, so anxiety didn't really exist. Fear did, but we could deal with it in a healthy way.
And the other thing also, when you were talking about what happened in the past, I mean, wow, what do we know now about anxiety in youth? Is social media. I mean,
yeah.
Everyone, when we were young, if you split up with somebody, you had no idea what they were doing.
Yes.
You just didn't see them. That was it.
Just taking a very quick break to thank our sponsor, SU Skincare. If you haven't heard of them, SU Skincare started right here in Australia, using Australian ingredients to make skincare straightforward and accessible, especially for men who want results without the fuss. Their journey took them all the way to the US, where they were featured in Macy's and over 300 stores. Now they're back with a fresh approach, focusing on healthy skin and authenticity for everyone. I'm proud to have SU Skincare as a sponsor on Leading Our Own Way. See the show notes for their website and to see how you can keep your skin healthy and confident. And if you're interested in sponsoring like SU Skincare, drop us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Now, right back to the episode.
Or if you wanted to talk to someone, you'd make a phone call, you'd arrange a time to talk, and that was it, But now it's like these kids get to see the ex-partner with someone else straight away. They get to see everyone with filters on, looking amazing, looking slimmer, prettier, whatever, and no one has a clue of reality of what's going on. And I mean, there was a wonderful thing that I'd read about. They'd gone into a North London school to talk to, boys about young, A-level, or what you would consider HSC in Australia equivalent, about men, about women, about what did they think. And they said, well, they all agreed all women should have long hair. That's it. Women should have long hair, but they shouldn't have any pubic hair. That's what a woman should be. And, it was a real insight into what's going on. Now, where have they got that from? That's from social media. That's from, looking at things. And so what happens then to all the young women who think, well, I don't have long hair, or, and so we're seeing more and more of these young girls doing more work on their faces and Botox and lips. I mean, lips like you've never seen before. It's incredible. And hair extensions and nails. And okay, there's nothing wrong with that, but nails and the toxins in eyelashes, they're huge, So we're doing all these things now. And then these women become these complete icons. And then the young men are terrified. I spoke to some young men, and they just said, women are just like horror, like scary. We don't know where we stand with them, because women are trying to stand their ground. The men don't know what's going on with the women. It's all chaos. And then you've got this complete mess of young people not knowing what's going on.
They might get into trouble if they say the wrong thing to the woman as well now.
Exactly, there's that too, absolutely. But I think also, it wasn't that long ago where we had, the mothers who were subservient to the fathers. My mother didn't work. She would always be providing food and be the mother at home and be there for my father and make sure his clothes were ready for him the next day and all that sort of thing. And then we're the generation of just like, now we've been told, women's liberation or whatever, we can go and work and we're doing our own thing. But there's that, we've seen the role model. So there's a real mixture with us. And then our children's generation, our daughters, and now these, well, I consider warrior queens. I mean, they're just like doing themselves and they're working and that's it. And, who's making the food? Take it in turns, I suppose. I mean, or buy it on instant delivery. I don't know. So, there's been a real change. So while women are getting their strength, men don't know their position. And then it gets on to actually what are the roles of men and women? Like, we've got to keep men empowered, because the masculine is the hunter, is the provider. And some people might not agree with me, but I'm afraid I think this is how it works. Men need to feel that they have something to offer. If they're not needed, what's their role? And then, so it's messy. So we've got all that, haven't we? And the anxiety piece as well. So there's a lot.
With all of these things that you've said then, and I know we're going to dig into food and the genetic side of things, but with all of that, with the contribution to the effects of, I suppose, our cells, where, cancer is coming from, where is cancer going to be coming where everybody experiences cancer at some point in their life? Do you think it's going to get to that?
Well, we're down to 1 and 2 already. It could do, unless we have a rapid, U-turn. But I think that's going to require some changes from a higher level. I think, governments really need to be getting rid of this food in supermarkets. It's not food.
Yeah. And
It's
that can
not
be
okay
done.
to sell chocolate biscuits to people where there is no chocolate in the biscuit.
I know. I mean, look, this can be done. Look at what Tony Blair did in 2006. He got rid of soda. He asked all the food companies in a secret office, apparently. I think I listened to this on Diary of the CEO, and he mentioned about, he asked the food companies, or told the food companies to reduce sodium by 10%, every year by 10% for 3 years, so 30%, because the pressure of strokes on the NHS was so huge. It takes, I think, 3 or 4 years to see the effect and the change, and it did.
Yeah.
Strokes dramatically went down.
Yeah.
Look at cigarettes. We all thought, we went through a period of time where cigarettes was healthy, or at least we thought it was. Then we realized after a period of time it wasn't healthy, but we sat in it for a while still smoking. I didn't. I've never smoked, but I saw my uncle die of it, and my great uncle and so on. He worked in a factory in Manchester, in the smoke factories. I forgot what it's called now. And he, then we went through a period of time where we knew it wasn't healthy, but we still sat in it. And then we realized how bad it was. We started to put pictures of arteries on the boxes, and we sat in it briefly. And then people were like, "Oh yeah, that's scary. We're going to stop smoking." Then we took smoking out of the clubs. So we've done it with smoking. I know we've moved to vaping, and that's a separate subject.
That's the problem. We've moved
Yeah.
to vaping, and
Yeah.
there's a question, which is that worse? And also the chemicals that they can put into vaping
Oh yeah.
that make it really difficult for people to give up. It's so addictive. And some people have told me they try and give up and it makes them really aggressive. Irrationally aggressive, and they don't know why.
Yeah, wow.
People who are not
Fascinating.
aggressive individuals. So it's like, what's going on there? We're just not taking responsibility here for our health. And the fact that, even the recommended daily allowances of vitamins and things is just based on, not health, but just the cohort of people, and just kind of keeping you away from disease, but not making you healthy. So we need to change up there, really, what's going on to keep the population healthy. If seed oils have got chemicals in them in the process, why are they in our food? Why are there all those ingredients that we have never seen before or don't even understand what they are in our food? That's not food. Supermarkets should be fruit and vegetables, nuts, seeds, eggs, milk, fish, all those things. That's what food is. All that processed stuff, that needs to go. And it's highly addictive, and they don't want it to go because people are making a lot of money out of it.
My border collie's from a farmer in Glenrowan, Ned Kellyland, and he's been here to the house, and we've become good friends. I become friends with everybody, everyone laughs about that. But anyway, he came here, stayed here because he was going to Geelong Showgrounds for a weekend, and he explained, he said to me, I've not touched milk. And he's a milk farmer, or was, but growing up on it from his mother and father. He said, I've not touched milk since I was 8. I've not drank it once. And I went, why? Because he sells milk cows as well. He said, because you don't understand the difference of when it leaves my farm to the point it reaches your fridge, what it's gone through and how it's changed. And I'm like, wow. And it's even like Gary Brecker, the human physiologist. I know not everybody necessarily agrees with everything Gary Brecker says, but he went through, I think it was seed oils or some sort of seed oils, the breakdown of the change of it. He said it's not actually the oil that's the problem. It's what goes on from the oil to the point when it hits your pan.
Absolutely.
Making it smell nice, break down the molecules, and I don't understand it fully, so I can't really go into it. But it's phenomenal.
Using solvents to clean it and things like, it's shocking. Yeah.
And to make it smell nice, so it doesn't smell disgusting, so the person doesn't buy it, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Well, it was like that whole thing originally, and back when they were talking about bringing margarine, and they were saying, well, actually, it was black before they dyed it yellow, so you could eat it.
Yeah.
Like, terrible, but yeah,
fascinating.
We need that to happen, I think, because if we don't, I think you're right. There is a high possibility that all of us will get some form of cancer in our lifetime.
Yeah, that's scary, isn't it? Your book, then, how long did it take you to write it?
It was interesting, the book, because what happened was it came from notes that I was sending clients. So I'd do the consultation, I'd be sending the reams of information. And then I thought, right, I need to put this together. COVID came along, let's put it together into a format, because everything was online. And at first I thought it'll just be a small book of 95 pages. And then it just grew from there. And it just had to be, well, hold on. The more I was learning, the more I needed to put in there, which was, And we've seen it in Australia, actually. There have been several people, and I don't recall their names, but I know that there have been a couple of people at least, really healthy individuals who have tried to beat cancer, haven't they, with diet, and they failed and passed away. And so it's not just about that, because we've also got to have all these other elements. And then that's how it all grew. And that's, it just kept growing. And I was going to self-publish. And then, so I was working with self-publishers. And then I came to Australia and I spoke to a publisher. And I was really lucky that Melbourne Books, amazing people, decided to publish my book. So then they had to take it back and re-edit it, because they said the editing hadn't been done very well, and which always makes you feel happy when you've paid money for things like that, but never mind. And so that took a bit longer, so they had it for another year. So I'd say a couple of years in the whole would have been the normal time frame, and then by the time you get it, it comes out. So
it's a beautiful book, and I even like the feel of the front cover too, and I know you're particularly proud of that.
Thank you. I wanted it to be something that felt like it could be a gift, and that people would, it would stand out, and it didn't feel like a horror story, because I think a lot of books are quite intense when it comes to this sort of thing. And when you're not well, you don't want any of that. And also, it's not about, well, I want to share with you what I know in an egotistical way. It's like, I want you to have the facts and the why behind maybe the change is really necessary. So so just trying to keep it simple, for whether it was, young clients I was talking to, or even, actually the ones that are more difficult to change are the older clients, like, people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, who are just like, this is the way I've always done it. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably why we're where we are now with your health. So let's see what we can do, trying to get them to see, oh yeah, maybe I'll try that on, because they can be quite stubborn when it comes to change. So I found it. So a couple of years, and trying to keep it simple for people so that they're taken on board was really important.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. And I remember you telling me in the pre-chat when we met last time online, there was a number of reasons. What's the root of why you wrote it? I know you had the collection of notes, but there's more reasons to why, I'm assuming. Why cancer in particular? I think I remember you telling me on the pre-chat that you were aware, a few people that you grew up with, you were aware of somebody maybe dying of cancer, and then the topics kept coming up. I mean, that's for you to share more than me, but what happened there? Was that a contribution as to why you wrote the book?
Oh, completely. I thought that that's what everyone experienced, and then I realized that wasn't it at all. So there was, a young girl when I was at school who had leukemia, and I went and saw her in hospital, and she was like bloated, and it was horrendous for her. And then we'd run around playing in the sitting room when I was about 12 at a friend's house, and his mother was on chemo in the middle of a room, and just, so ill with, no hair and things like that. And then it went on to my ex-husband, his parents both had cancer. It just kept coming up all the time. And I realized that actually, well, especially with what happened with my father-in-law, was he had bladder cancer before my husband got it. And I'd been working and looking into it already, and I'd really got on this path of the whole alkalinity and acidity of the body, and how difficult it is to stay in that healthy alkaline environment that the body is in. It's only just a little bit alkaline, but just to maintain that homeostasis, if we keep like bombarding it with acids and things, that it's more difficult. The lungs have to work harder, the kidneys have to work harder. Everything's trying to combat this acid. And I realized that actually, with him, I started giving him alkaline water. So I gave him alkaline water, and he was seeing a specialist every 6 months. He'd have up to, at the last point was 10 tumors in the bladder, and they'd have to zap them out. Hugely painful experience he'd go through. And, he was in his early 60s, so it was awful. And I gave him alkaline water, and within 3 months, he went back, and there was only one tumor. And the specialist said, I don't know what you've done, but you've only got one tumor, so you can just come every year now. So I was like, is it really? Like, we can actually make that difference. And he'd been doing that for 10 years, by the way. It wasn't just a one-off that he'd had 10 and then one, and it could have been, just irrational. They'd been growing consecutively for like a number of years. Oh, probably 12 to 14 years. And so I realized, actually, hold on, this information needs to go so that people can, they've got the information that they're not being given, and they can take it on if they want to. They've got the tools. It's up to them if they choose it, but at least they have the tools. And I didn't think that we were given the tools. I certainly wasn't. When I went in to see a doctor because I was having night sweats and I didn't know what was going on, and my Chinese medicine doctor said, I want you to go to the GP and ask for these tests, tell them what's happening. And I did, and they tested my kidneys, and they said, oh, your kidney function's really poor. I was diagnosed of having chronic kidney disease, stage 3. So your kidney function, which is they based it on it's called a GFR, glomerular filtration rate of your kidneys, should be like above 90. And mine had gone down to 45. And when you get down to like 13, you're on dialysis. I mean, that's it, it's all over. And I was just on this like massive decline. And I was 40 and I'm thinking, whoa, what's going on? I don't even know what's happened here. So I said, well, what do I do? And they said, well, you can lose weight. I'm like, okay, I'm 8.5 stone. Like, really? Okay. I'm 5'9", so I'm not losing any more weight. I'm good, like I wasn't probably 9 stone, 9.5, whatever. Or you can stop smoking. I'm like, well, I'm not smoking. So, okay, what else? Well, not much you can do, really. That's it. That was the advice I was given. So I went back and I started thinking, what the hell? I'm not going to be on dialysis in 10 years' time. No way, or 5. So I'm going to start researching. And then I started looking into things. And then I thought, that's interesting. That's interesting. When I have chicken and I sleep that night, I sweat. That's obviously causing a stress on my kidneys. So let me cut that out. I'm not sweating. Let's actually look at, actually, we're all in this generation of drinking water is a great thing, but what we were all doing, or many of us, is flooding the kidneys, just constantly drinking water. Have a water bottle next to you and just keep going. That's really bad for the kidneys. Actually, have one small 250 ml glass an hour and then leave it for an hour, let it rest. And then do it again. That's good for the kidneys. Caffeine, very stimulating for the kidneys and things like that. So I just made those changes. And that my kidney function went from 45 back up to 79. Now, they told me I couldn't reverse it. They told me that's it. So those things made me really understand people are not being given the information. And it's not because the health system is wrong. It just hasn't got the resources to actually look further. And also doctors, they do a lot of study and they want to see lots of papers in order to give you the right advice, which I agree with. But no one's going to do a paper on whether you should, well, they didn't at the time, is animal protein bad for the kidneys? And since then they have. And now we've seen, yes, that can be taxing for the kidneys. But there are still some people that say it doesn't affect them, doesn't affect the outcome. But I mean, just on that alone, I have another client who was in living abroad, a young girl, and her kidney function was 23 and she was going down to 18. And they said, you can't have a second child. They had on the notes, you're going for a transplant. And I said, okay, let's just stop. We're going to do what I did. We did it. And she, not only has she given birth to twins, her kidney function, we reversed it up to 40. Now, that's still not where it needs to be, but it's 100% improvement, over 100% improvement where it was.
Yeah.
So, that's why this information has to go out there for people, because it means they've got some tools they can try. I'm not saying it's definitely going to work. I said to her, we're going to give it a go. And with me, I had no idea, but we just got to try these things. So by trying these things, you can get the positive outcome. And people didn't know that. And the system doesn't know it. The system doesn't know it yet.
Even there's 2 points I want to bring up with some of the points you did bring up there with the acid and alkaline environment, but also the water. You also wrote in your book, which I didn't know this because I like a drink of water with because I don't put anything else into my body other than water now, but like I might have a whiskey on a very special occasion. It's not like when I was younger where I used to do it all the time, but now I read in your book about not having water 15 minutes before you eat and up to 45 minutes after you eat.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because when we eat, obviously the food goes into the stomach and the digestive juices break it down. I mean, they start breaking it down beforehand, but in the stomach particularly, we want to have strong digestive juices and strong stomach acid, and we dilute it with water. So the stomach acid helps us with digestive enzymes, and if it's all weakened, we're not actually.
So true. That makes
Yeah,
perfect sense.
that's it. So we've got lots of people who are like having some sort of reflux and things, and they're given antacids, and quite often, especially when we're older, when the stomach acid levels lower, it's actually because you've got lower stomach acid, not higher, that you're having. So actually, that's not the answer, giving them those antacids. So I've had a couple of people, I've taken them off them recently, and we're doing different things, and we're raising that stomach acid. But yeah, that's why we keep water away, just so that we don't dilute it.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
Oh my God. Going to the acid versus alkaline chapter, I'm going to read. I find this absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm just going to read something, and then you can take it wherever you want to take it. But it says, cancer, above all other diseases, has countless secondary causes, but even for cancer, there is only one prime cause. One prime cause. I'm emphasizing that. The prime cause of cancer is the replacement of the respiration of oxygen in normal body cells by fermentation of sugar. All normal body cells meet their energy needs by respiration of oxygen, whereas cancer cells meet their energy needs in great part of fermentation of glucose. So how, I suppose my question to you before, maybe you want to elaborate on that, I don't know, but why, how, and the flip side to that, my question is, how do we make our bodies an alkaline environment more for those people who are tuning in and not quite understanding it?
Yeah, so the body will maintain, on the whole, an alkaline environment. It's a pH of 7.365. So that's the pH. So it's only just alkaline. Everything below 7 is acid. Everything above is alkaline. So it does that anyway. Now, it has to maintain that homeostasis depending on what we do to it. And there are things like, stresses on the body causes acidity, and caffeine causes acidity, and obviously some foods cause, high acidity. So by minimizing those things to keep balance, then it means the lungs don't have to work as much to remove the acid. The pancreas doesn't have to secrete the minerals to keep all the acids really, in check. And the kidneys don't need to keep neutralizing acids that are coming in. So we eat a diet that is not particularly acidic forming, which is processed foods, lots of meats, lots of dairies. So yeah, we try and have that alkaline, lots of fruit and vegetables that are more alkaline, nuts and seeds. And there are various scales of alkalinity. And I don't think that we need to be obsessed about it, but I do think that trying to take the pressure off the body is a good one. Now, just kind of slightly digressing a little bit, I see a lot of cancer when there's been a history of people drinking Coca-Cola or Diet Coke. That has an acid content or a pH of 3. So if it's meant to be 7 in your body, and each point on the logarithmic scale is times 10, times 100, times 1,000, times 10,000, that's really acidic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work in there to get rid of that acid. But the body will do everything to maintain it. To get to what we call acidosis is really extreme. When those organs can't do the work anymore, then we're really in trouble.
So that's the balance, like homeostasis. That's the word that you use. What do you use then?
That's the word, saying to keep it in balance. That's what our body does with everything.
How did you say that again?
Sorry?
What was that word you used? Acidosis. Okay, I'm going to try and remember that one. I like that.
So you think that it's, a lot of people say, well, the stomach has acid in it to neutralize food. Yes, that's true. But if you're bombarding your body with acid and things become acidic and the organs can't bring that back into homeostasis, there's a risk that you're going to get ill. Fasting causes stress on the body, which is an acidic environment. So how much fasting, should we be doing? And I know you've had that discussion actually in past previous podcasts about fasting for 19 hours when you were talking to Amelia, I remember, and what we do know is that, for example, women shouldn't be fasting for longer than 14 hours, that can really disrupt our hormones. And we see that with children, girls, with who have an eating disorder, perhaps anorexic, where their periods stop because the hormones are just like shutting down. So for women, fasting over 14 hours is not a good idea. You don't want to put your body in this stress state, this acid forming state.
So do you not think I should do 19 hours then? Is that too much?
I think that it depends on your body. I think 16 hours is really good. We've seen with scientific papers, 16 hours is a really good fasting period for men, generally. And that if you do want to do a longer fast, it's a one-off thing. But the thing with the body, to bring it into safety, the only thing that produces the real stress, I mean, no, not the only thing. Body thinks that it's going to, its survival is based on whether it's going to be in a famine state or not, or whether it's safe. You know, it's like it needs to feel safe. And by giving it some food, it feels safe. So when we wake up in the morning, the cortisol level's high in the body. And then if we don't feed it, and then we have a coffee, which raises it more, and we go to the gym, you know, all these things are raising cortisol, and then it's causing a stress. There's stresses on the body, which is acid forming. So that can be dangerous to our health. If we just break that fast with something, then that tells the body we're safe, brings cortisol levels down a bit, you know, even though we have to actively do that with breathing. But, you know, this is a slightly different level of cortisol. We're not so high. But yeah, so it's about making the body feel safe. And what you can find is, you know, people can be fasting and exercising, but not losing weight, because the stress on the body is saying, I don't know when the next meal's coming. I'm going to hold on to what I've got.
Yeah. Sits in the belly there, does it?
And it sits. Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, you know, I had one client, I just said to her, just have something small in the morning before you go and do the exercise. And she did. And then the weight started coming off. So the body needs to feel safe. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I could, if that's the case, and I'm quite happy to have something at recess, you know, 11 o'clock when the kids go to break. So what would you suggest that would be good for me? Can I have a piece of fruit? Would I, some blueberries? Because I take a pack of blueberries. Would it be, could I just move that from the lunchtime to the 11 o'clock time instead then?
Yeah, but why don't you have it with a bit of protein as well? You know, I always think start the day with that warm water and lemon to like help just clear out, you know, the kidneys and liver have been working overnight doing all their job. So let's just clear out toxins. So that's a really good start. And then we, as from a nutrition point of view, we like to say, you know, ideally should eat within the first hour or two of waking. So, but it seems now with the whole fasting, with, as I said, with men, it's not as important, but your still cortisol levels are high. So yes, I would have something like blueberries, but have it with something. Could you have it with some sort of protein? I say to people, have some nuts, and you know, maybe have it with some nuts, some walnuts, or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, good advice. I'll take that away from you.
I think that's a good little thing, you know, just to break that. Just, you know, it's like the self-care part, isn't it? It's like telling the body it's safe.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Yeah,
solving it and telling it, right, you're going to work, and I'm not going to give you anything.
I think I was probably looking at it from a preservation, you know, so that the cells, as opposed, stay strong and defend themselves, and that's probably how I was looking at it. Maybe, I don't know.
And there is, so if we burn most of the glucose after the 13th hour, and then we're doing some things like you're saying, like a cold plunge or whatever, that tells the body, or even a walk, it's like the body says, okay, I'm going to have to burn off, and it has to wake up because it's being forced to do things. That's a really good thing. But how long do we keep that going for?
Every day.
6 hours is a long time, isn't it? You know?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that this is, you know, there are lots of different thoughts on this, but we do know science has said women 14 hours, fantastic for breast cancer, definitely want to fast 14 hours. Men 16 hours, great, especially for colon cancer, definitely fast 16 hours. Longer, you know, when I first was looking at cancer, I read some incredible cases of some guys in France who had been doing 30-day fasts and just water, and they had to be monitored. But when they came back off the fast and they went back to their normal living, their cancers came back. People with water fasts, the cancers come back. It's interesting.
That is interesting.
What's going on there? That's something I want to look into, because there are other people that we know that have completely changed their lifestyle, but the answer is the cancer's gone away, but they've stayed with that changed lifestyle. You can't just starve it and then go back to your normal way of living. Clearly, it's not working. So I hope that there are people that can tell me, no, it definitely does, and it's never come back again. I would love to hear that, but I keep seeing how that's not the case. So yeah.
Fascinating. Well, just to close off I want to finish off that the acid versus alkaline part of your chapter. You included a quote, and I think this is really important to share. You shared a quote, and I'm not going to give you a whole book away because I think people should buy it, and I'll put it in the show notes.
Don't worry.
But this this quote is really important, I think, by Dr. Otto Warburg, and it says, "No disease, including cancer, can exist in an alkaline environment."
Yeah.
Fascinating. Did not know that.
Interesting, isn't it? Because now we consider cancer as a metabolic disease, which is about how each cell is living, keeping it healthy and well. And
we're going to get into that.
We're going to get into that. I know.
We're going to get into that. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
I think that because you do work with people who come to you, probably more so at the crisis has reached in their life, or they've been diagnosed with cancer. Is there any stories? I know you said a few, but is there a particular story that sticks out in your mind where a good feel story of a client, obviously without mentioning names, what's happened to them with some of the things you put in place? And you have shared one or two, I know you have, but is there any more that you can elaborate on? Just maybe one more that you can share with us, a good feel story.
Well, I think the most important story, can I share the one that's in the book, which is actually not a client?
Absolutely, yeah, of course you can.
It's amazing, and I really recommend everyone gets his book if they have cancer. And that's why I put it in the book. It's so important for people to look at this as a resource. But there was a woman called Brandon Bays, and she wrote a book called The Journey, and she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and it was the size of a basketball, reaching up in her diaphragm, causing internal bleeding. She actually worked for Tony Robbins. She was part of the Tony Robbins crew, and some of them just thought she was pregnant. So that was what was going on. Anyway, she was diagnosed with this ovarian cancer. They said, you could die in days. You need an operation. And she's a homeopath. And she said, I need some time on this. Like, she felt she'd failed her body. So she said, just give me 4 weeks. And off she went and did what she felt was the right thing to do. And I can read out what she actually did, which I think it's really empowering for people to see the difference. And then I'll tell you what the outcome was. So basically, she said, I underwent radical changes in lifestyle, diet, exercise, and mindset. Meditation, affirmations, and visualizations became my best companions for healing. My day began with pranayama, yogasana, and surana namaskaras. Silent nature walks and a lot of self-introspective helped heal me further. Self-introspection. Homeopathic medicine supported me to deal with the cancer and its mental and emotional effects. The ultimate healing factor was the unconditional love and support of my friends and family in the journey, and my positive attitude towards my body to allow my body to heal itself and to trust in the immense power of healing. Lastly, I allowed love and peace to be part of me and stopped fighting with life. Instead, I accepted life the way it came. Now, within 4 weeks, she went back and she'd reduced it. Within 6 weeks, it was gone completely. She didn't ever have surgery. She didn't ever have chemotherapy. And so that shows the power of the body to heal. And it's like, I really want every cancer patient to know this is possible. It really is possible. So, and there are lots of cases with people that were given like 2 to 6 weeks to live, and by changing their diets and lifestyle that they're still living. And it's not always the way, which is a real sadness, but for me, but it certainly has helped a lot of people live a lot longer and a better quality of life.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the key, and I think that's really what this book's about, and what I'm hoping I'm leading my way with, is to let people know that there are options.
Absolutely.
They're not always right. The doctors aren't always right.
Yeah. And
so only based on what they know so far. It's like they'll say, okay, well, this is your you might get 2 to 6 weeks or be on end of life care, but that's for the norm. That's for the person who's living with the standard lifestyle and diet, things like that. What if you actually really radically change your diet and you have high dose of really good quality supplements that can have the ability to turn things on and off, to change the environment, and if you really are doing something with detoxing and cleansing, the body's and lowering the stress so the immune system builds. I mean, like, wow, look at the changes you can make. So of course we can have huge improvement. Like, I've never had anyone who's come with this time frame that hasn't lived longer than that time frame.
Fascinating. I know there's a guest that I'm going to interview. I need to organise even the pre-chat with her. I've just been so busy, but she was given 2 days.
Yeah.
2 days to live, and that was a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
It's just
amazing.
And I can't give you anything more than that because I've not spoke to her yet, but it's just fascinating, and I can't wait to share.
Incredible. That's a great story. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, so there have been a lot of cases, and unfortunately, just touching on cases that I've dealt with, I don't think I've ever had a patient who has said, I'm not going to take the chemo option. And I can't say that they should or shouldn't. It's not my job. But I can say that when I speak to integrative oncologists at centers around the world, and some of them are having to give low dose chemotherapy alongside, hypothermia, infrared sauna, hyperbaric oxygen, all those wonderful things, and the off-label or repurposed drugs that we're now using in cancer more and more, they have said to me, I would have a better outcome if I didn't have to give chemo. It's quite toxic on the body, but I'm not I can't say it shouldn't, and in some cases maybe they should.
Yeah. Is there any cases that you could have known it would have been different
if they hadn't had the treatment?
What in any scenario, if you know, with the knowledge that you have and the advice that you've given, based on whether they should have, and I suppose the opposite side to the story you've just shared, there could have been a better chance if they, I don't know, took your advice or done it the other way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I had one client who was had been given end of life, and we were 18 months in, and she was doing brilliantly, and she went for a trial, and she had a grapefruit-sized tumor, pancreatic, and they took cells and they said, these cells are dead. It's dying, this tumor. And what happened from there was she changed her diet. She was like, I'm okay. She wasn't. And she just went back, and it went wrong.
Well, that's it for part 1 with Bridget Hancock. That's part 1 of part 2, anyway, this week. Well, if this episode resonated with you, please follow the show and leave a review. It really helps us reach more people who need these conversations. And if you or someone you know is affected by cancer or chronic illness, please check and seek support from a healthcare professional. These stories are here to inspire, but nothing replaces expert advice. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll dive even deeper into the science and strategies for living a longer, healthier life. Thanks for listening, and remember, every day is a chance to lead your own way. We'll see you on Wednesday for part 2. Don't forget Tuesday Truths tomorrow. Snippets of part 1 and part 2. Don't miss it. Anyway, please go follow the show. We'll see you then. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you then.